You are listening to the Overcome Pornography for Good podcast, episode 199. I'll eventually give in. Welcome to the Overcome Pornography for Good podcast, where we take a research-based, trauma-informed, and results-focused approach to quitting porn. This approach has been revolutionary and changed thousands and thousands of lives. I'm your host, Sarah Brewer. Hey everyone, welcome to today's podcast episode. I am so excited you're here. Before we dive in, I'm going to throw this out there. So we are looking for podcast success stories. So if this podcast has really changed your life, if you've had an amazing experience listening to it, if certain things have really clicked for you and changed how you've approached this whole issue, and you want to be a part of our mission, and you want to be a part of getting this out there to more people and to helping other people find this and helping other people decrease shame and find that, freedom back in their lives, and you'd like to be featured as a success story, will you email us? Will you email specifically? I'm going to have you email Laveer, who is one of my employees, and you spell it Laveer. Laveer at sarahbrewer.com. We can also put his email in the show notes, but just send him an email and say, hey, I'd love to be featured as a podcast success story. We'll also send out an email about it, so if you're on the email list, make sure you look for that. Anyways, let's get into today's episode. I'm really excited to share this with you. So today I'm sharing a clip of a coaching call that I did in the program recently, and I received permission from this particular client to let us use this clip. We are just cutting out name and any identifying things or comments just to keep them anonymous. But what I wanted to highlight in sharing this, and I think it's going to be really interesting, there's a lot we can talk about on this topic of I'll eventually give in. But this client brought this concern to the coaching call and basically said, in the back of my mind, there's just always this thought, I'll eventually give in, I'll eventually give in. And I've done the thought work around it. And, I'm doing so much of the program work and it's still just there. And what we ended up discovering is that it's not necessarily some thought that he just has to change and switch around, but this thought is coming from a deeper, more wounded part of him, a younger self part of him. And we kind of walk through and discover what that is in this coaching call. I also wanted to highlight this because we talk about, we're going through and doing this inner child healing work. And then this client asks, okay, this is like great. But how does this actually apply to me quitting porn? And so we chat about that for a little bit too, and how there's a tendency to think that doing inner child healing is separate from the actual concrete work of, trying not to view porn. But the truth is that they're not separate. They're not separate. And so this highlights, some of that deeper work and really inner healing that we can do that is really beautiful. And, it's not quite as simple as, okay, well, if you're always thinking, I'll eventually give in, how can we change that thought? It's a little bit more, how can we get to the root of where this thought is coming from? Where's this part coming from? What does it feel like? What does it act like? Why does it feel this way? And how can we heal it? How can we heal it? And the results of doing that work can be really, really magnificent. Really, honestly, that's how we do deep inner change that feels really easy to sustain is we heal, we heal, we heal, we heal. We don't just tell ourselves to do something different. We don't shame ourselves. We don't beat ourselves up. We just continue to heal and heal and heal these inner parts of us. And I hope that, this highlights that for you. So please enjoy this little clip. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. What would you like coaching on?
Yeah, so I've noticed just a recurring pattern in some of my struggles. And it's often when I'm at work or just in the middle of the day, I might have something that's kind of giving me some anxiety or it might be a little bit of shame. And I just get the thought in my head of I think I want to look at porn. And it's something that I've noticed when it first pops up. I've listened to your podcast a lot I joined the program about a month ago. So I think I just finished the learn and move on milestone, but I've really been working on like, okay, what does it look like to allow my thoughts, to allow, not resist the anxiety or just the, whatever I'm feeling. I've been working on that, but I've just noticed it tends to kind of wear on me over time. And I just have this belief in the background of like, I'm just eventually going to give in. And so I might process the urge. I might feel okay for like an hour. I might allow my thoughts, but then I just notice, oh, the anxiety is still there, or I just have this sinking feeling that I'm just going to give in. The temptation's going to get more stronger. And then, eventually just like, after work or something, I might give in. So just wanted to help on that.
Yeah, let's chat about that. All right, this thought, I'm eventually going to give in. Oh, really good awareness.
Thanks.
Okay, when you think that I'm eventually going to give in, where do you feel it in your body?
I think just like around my heart. I think it's just kind of like this sinking feeling around my heart that is just, it's just uncomfortable.
Okay, yeah. Let's explore it a little bit more. Does that have like a name, an emotion name? Would you name that, when you think I'm eventually going to give in? What feeling is that around your heart?
Like what emotion is it? Or
yeah.
What? I would say that it's more of just like depression and shame. I think it's, just like, man, I'm hopeless and I'm just bad and broken because I'm just eventually going to give up or give in.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me more about that feeling of hopeless that you feel around your heart. Maybe tell me a little bit like what it feels like. Does it feel heavy or light or strong or weak?
Yeah, I would say it feels heavy. It feels just like a chasm in my chest of just like this sinking, almost like a vacuum that I'm just like falling into.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it had an age, does any age come to mind when you think of this hopeless?
Good question. I mean, it definitely feels old. Is the question around like how long have I felt this similar feeling, or
it's just kind of whatever comes to mind. I'm not looking for anything specific.
Okay.
But okay, so it feels old, like it's been there a long time. But like, is there, if you were to say it's like a 4-year-old or it's a 10-year-old or does one of those come to mind?
The first thought that came to my mind was like teenager. I don't. Yeah. So
like 14.
That's what I would
16. Say. Which one?
Well, I'll say 17.
17. Okay. Okay, what we've got here, and tell me if this resonates. But we've got. So have you seen Inside Out?
Yeah,
the movie with all the little parts.
Yep.
So that's what we're imagining this as. This hopeless. It's one part of you, and it's 17 years old, but it's pretty dang loud right now. As we feel into that part of you, this 17-year-old hopeless part, what comes to mind? What is it telling you? What is it saying to you? If it had a voice, what would it say?
I think it would be like, you're not okay because you struggle. You struggle with this thing that it's not okay to struggle with it.
Yeah.
And therefore, therefore you're just broken and.
Yeah. All right. So let me recap what I heard. This part of you, it feels hopeless. All these things it's saying to you. It's not okay to struggle with this. You're broken with this. And then it has a lot of evidence that that you're eventually going to give in. And it really wants to show you all of that evidence.
Correct.
It's like, well, you haven't before and it's been X amount of years. Now, with that evidence, I want you just to put that on hold for a minute and just, keeping in mind, the concept of confirmation bias, and we find what we're looking for. And also like struggling or having this issue for X amount of years means nothing about your future. So let's just put that on hold.
Okay.
And go back to 17-year-old here and he's saying all these things to you. Now, does it feel like he's being a bully and he's saying these things mean to you, or does it feel like he's just distressed?
I would say more the latter, more distressed.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think it needs?
That's a good question. I think it needs to know that the recovery is not, it doesn't happen all at once.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think it needs to know that this struggle does not define me.
Okay. Yeah. You're asking it like that it doesn't define me.
Right.
Like, you're right. It doesn't.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'll validate you. Yes. Okay. It doesn't define you. Now, let's even kind of go a little bit more into the 17 part.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming maybe 17 years old might have been when this was popping up for you first, or when the big shame around it came.
It was the big shame around it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the wounded part here.
Mm-hmm.
The wounded part is it's not something that we need to fix for you to believe in yourself, that you can really do this more. What needs to happen is we need to heal this 17-year-old that was really shamed.
Yeah.
Oh, and like, you can just feel that, right? Like, yeah, he needs some like love.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we imagine 17-year-old and what he was going through and whatever happened or whatever was going on for him then, if he were here with you right now, what would you do, or what could you do to help him?
Yeah. I think I would encourage him and just remind him that, yeah, this struggle doesn't define him. And also that the struggle is not, we don't fight against the struggle just by beating ourselves up and using willpower or shaming ourselves, but that I'm even going a little bit deeper of just, he's okay. It's okay to struggle.
Yeah.
And that he can still be, proud and worthy, and like, this doesn't have to overcome this struggle in order to do X, Y, and Z in his life.
Yeah. Right. So you see, we come into this and we're thinking, okay, we have to fix this belief that, what was it? We have to fix this belief that thinks I'm going to give in. Like, there's something wrong with that belief. But no, what we're doing instead is, oh no, we've got parts that need loving and need to be told that they're actually going to be okay. And that they can still, this doesn't define them, and they can still do whatever they need to and be a good person. That's what we need. And that's going to help you a lot more than trying to like change that belief to something more positive.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess what do I then do? Just being transparent, the doubting voice in my head goes, oh, well, that's all warm and fuzzy and sounds good. But like, you're kind of just distracting from the practical reality. What do I kind of do with that doubt?
Yeah. Tell me about the practical reality of that you're viewing porn. That you want to quit porn.
Yeah. And just the struggle with the belief that like, I won't.
Yeah. Well, there's a part of you that thinks that it's separate, that thinks that loving and healing yourself is separate from getting your control back with porn. But they're not separate.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
And so when you do hear that voice pop up and you've got so much awareness, you're doing great. But when you hear that voice pop up, that's like, I'm eventually going to give in. All that's a little signal. Oh, you're a 17-year-old. What can we do to love him right now? And so like really filling your soul with love for him and like healing him. And the inner child work module will help you a lot with that. Love like specific journal prompts that you can do. But what you'll find practically is that, right, you view porn because you're escaping emotion. And the emotion is coming from like these unhealed wounds. And so as you heal those wounds, you will find yourself needing to view porn less and less and less.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that's affirming. I'm currently like going to counseling for just some trauma in my past. And so I think it's spot on to what I'm hearing from my other counselors. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. Any other like obstacles or challenges or things that your brain is saying, but what about this that we should talk through?
I mean, we don't have a ton of time. I do have another topic that I could bring up, but I don't know how much time we have.
Go ahead and bring it up and let's see what we can answer in a couple of minutes. And I just want to see if maybe it connects a little bit here too. So let's just see.
Yeah. So a big struggle of mine, I know, is shame, and it's surrounding the idea. I'm, very spiritual, very, grew up in a evangelical church, and I have a community group that I meet with every week, and I've had a lot of shame around the idea of pursuing dating while struggling with this. And it's something that I'm aware that I struggle kind of with rumination and anxiety and just overthinking a ton on that point. But I know it kind of is traced back to that idea of like shame, like I'm not worthy, I'm a bad person if I choose to date while if I'm not perfect with this struggle. And so when I give in, mess up, it kind of restarts this whole rumination process, shame cycle in my head of like, oh, here I go again. I shouldn't be dating. And then I'll catastrophizing the ideas in my head of like, I'm never going to get over this. And then it kind of is like a snowball effect. And so anyways, that's a very like lot of roots there, I'm sure, but that's kind of the topic.
It's great. I'm so glad you brought that up. And you're already aware, like, it's the shame. And so as we heal the shame, that's going to start healing. But a few concepts that might help you as you navigate this. First concept is, go listen to one of my last episodes on dead people goals. You heard me talk about that before?
I have not heard that, but.
So the idea there is that we set goals sometimes that are not great and are actually kind of destructive if they're dead people goals, which is a goal that a dead person could do better than you could do.
Okay.
So never view porn. That's a dead person goal. And that's actually pretty harmful. That can be pretty harmful.
Oh.
And so we want to switch our mindset from that, which still is kind of all or nothing, to living person goals, which is moving towards something, moving towards my sexual values, moving towards my chosen sexual values. And so instead of having a destination, because I want us to think of this like a compass. So we decide we want to move west. West isn't a destination. You never get to west, but you can always be moving west. And so it's the same with sexuality.
Okay. Yeah.
We really want to change that from I'm never going to view porn to I'm moving towards my sexual values.
Okay. Yeah.
That's all there is going to be, period, too. So the more peace that we can get around that, and the peace around potentially, slipping up in the future, or peace around, that, the better quality of life you're going to have and the healthier you're going to be. And so I know, right, especially with some of our really religious backgrounds and like evangelicism and all these other things, and it can be, it's really ingrained from us when we're really tiny. Never, ever. That's going to be something that, as you're working with your counselor and us here in the program, to like kind of flesh out, how can I still hold on to all of those spiritual values in my relationship with God, but see this in a healthier way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would be what's an example of that? Like going west, but there's no destination. What would be like an example of that towards
with sexuality? It's going to be like, I'm living values of sexual health, and we're going to get a video in the program here on these specific things here in a little bit, but it would be like, I'm moving towards like just safety in my sexuality and consent, using sexuality for good. I have a video on that in this healthy sexuality milestone, which if you haven't watched it, I would recommend. But like defining, what does it mean to use sexuality for good for me, which isn't just repression, and it's not just like never view porn. There's a lot more get there, but like moving towards intimacy, moving towards like loving my body, loving the sexual part of me is using sexuality for good. Like moving towards love, moving towards acceptance, moving towards like also like being in control and being able to choose what it is that I consume, consent, safety, shared value, like those types of things.
Gotcha.
Does that help?
That does. Yeah. Kind of instead of like running away from something, running towards something else.
Yes, exactly. And so with dating, right, I'm moving towards finding someone with my shared values. I'm moving towards like a really healthy sex life and a really healthy view of myself sexually, because the more that you can view yourself and your like sexual drive in a really beautiful, healthy way, the better your relationship is going to be. You know, moving away from some sexual shame and healing the sexual shame aspect and being able to integrate that with your relationship with God is so cool and so beautiful.
Yeah.
There's some other examples. And then one last thing around that. So I drew a iceberg, and I love this. So porn is just what we see at the top, but underneath everything else is what's really important. So even in relationships, okay? So relationships, what can be under the porn use could be something like lying, could be some subtle emotional abuse. It could be like some of those things. And that's going to create a really negative result with the porn. If what's under the iceberg with porn is like sexual shame that you're healing, is like some buffering that you're working through, that's way different.
Yeah.
And so a healthy relationship is not based off whether or not you're viewing porn. And there's tons of data to back this up too, that you can go read. It's what's under the porn use. And so, right, for some people, that's like they agree and they're okay with each partner using this type of porn, but not this, but, you know, whatever, like viewing porn, but not chatting, you know. And so it's, are we honest with each other? Is there intimacy? It's not really about are we, you know, telling the truth? Are we working towards similar things? It's not if there's porn or not.
Yeah.
Does that help?
So I guess what you're saying is we often add shame to the porn use because porn is often accompanied by many other negative characteristics.
Yeah.
But it's not really just the porn that creates all the problems that you hear about.
Exactly. So when you hear someone say, oh, they got divorced, guess what? He was looking at porn. That's not the reason they got divorced. Because if that's the reason for people to get divorced, and this might sound a little triggering to anyone, so let me clarify. So like that's not, then anyone who viewed porn would get divorced. It's really like there's a lot more that's happening. Like maybe they're just not a good match. Maybe they're not matching with their sexual values. Maybe there's betrayal. Maybe there's subtle like abuse maybe on either side, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's helpful. That gives me some good things to think on. So I appreciate it.
Cool. Yeah, you're welcome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that. I know it's helpful for a lot of people. I want to invite you to come and listen to my free class, How to Overcome Pornography for Good Without Using Willpower. We talk about how to stop giving into urges without pure willpower or relying on phone filters so that you can actually stop wanting pornography. We talk about how to stop giving up after a few weeks or months. And spoiler alert, the answer isn't have more willpower. And then lastly, we talk about how to make a life without porn easily sustainable and permanent. If you're trying to quit porn, this class is a game changer. So you can go and sign up at sarahbrewer.com/masterclass, and it is totally free.